Guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tatum Temia. I'm the host of the Blessed and Bossed Up podcast and the CEO of Anchored Media. Today's video, we're talking about total life harmony. This is a part 2, so if you haven't watched part 1, go ahead and stop this right now, go back to the previous video, watch that, and then come back. So we're just talking about just some practical things that you can do to create that harmony, because I think balance is impractical. I prefer harmony. So the next tip I want to give you is you have to set boundaries. One thing I've learned in therapy is that I'm very good at setting boundaries, like in business and my schedule and things like that. But my boundaries get very blurry when it comes to people I care about, to where I start saying yes when I should be saying no. I start committing to things that I shouldn't commit to because I love and care about the person. And so I thought I was a lot more thug life than I actually am. I'm a little more soft and mushy than I like to admit. But one thing that I've realized though is just boundaries are important. And something my therapist was telling me is that sometimes it's not just the thing you have to do. Because somebody may ask you, let's say, hey, can you help out with this event that I have coming up? And you may say, oh, that's simple. I'll just go and I don't know, greet the people as they walk in or whatever the person asks. But there's usually so much more that goes into the thing than the thing itself, right? So you may have a planning meeting that you now have to be involved in so that you know what to do that day. You may have to stay late to help break the event down. All of these different things that you may not have considered when you said yes, and you may not have taken into account as far as if you really had the wiggle room or the time or the energy to get it done. And so having boundaries is so important. I found even with myself, a lot of things that weren't my commitments, my business, my family, like my main commitments, were really weighing me down because I committed to them out of the love for the person and without really taking into account the totality of what will go into me making that commitment. If I'm allowing myself to get burnt out, then I'm not going to be good for anybody else. Not for my family, not for my business, not for my clients, not for my team, and not for me. So you have to set boundaries. My favorite boundaries with business is I have a set work schedule. I work from 8:30 to 4:30. Simple as that. Don't work in the evenings. I don't do it. Clients sometimes try to get me to, but I just don't, because I'm no good at that time. I wake up usually like 5:30 in the morning, and so I'm up for a long period of time. I'm very focused when it comes to work during the day. If I worked into the evening, I would be no good for anybody. I would be no good to trying to help folks with the business. I would be no good for myself. I've done that before where I've gone to bed with headaches, woken up with headaches. I'm dreaming about work because I work too late into the evening. It's just not a good space to be in for me. So for a big boundary that works for me is having set work hours. And I would suggest that for any of you guys, just really separating the work and home life. Something else that helps with setting those boundaries is focus mode on your phone. Now, I don't know how Android works, no shade to y'all that have those, but with iPhones, we have what's called focus mode. And this is my favorite feature that iPhone has ever come up with. So my phone during work hours is on work mode. So the only people who can get through are my team, my nanny, and my husband. That's it. After work hours in the evenings, it's usually off focus mode because I'm at home, I'm working. Nobody's really bothering me about business because everybody kind of knows I don't work in the evenings. So I usually like call my parents or my grandmother. I'm talking to family and just kind of in home family mode in the evening, so it's not on during that time. But during work, having that focus mode on is super important. Even I have also a time with God mode. So when I'm spending time with God, nobody can reach me during that time except for my husband and my nanny if it falls within the time that she's at the house. That's it. Nobody else can reach me because she's only texting me if it has to do with my son. So I know that if a message or call from her comes through, it's important. And then BJ, we're usually together in the house or something like that. But just in case he needs to reach me, then he's able to get to me at all times. So having even that focus mode during my time with God is important. If I don't have any notifications or anybody calling me or anything like that, that's just setting a boundary. And it's also eliminating my temptation to bend my boundaries for those that I love. Because I told you guys I am mushy for people that I love. And a way that I maintain that is by having things like focus mode, to where I don't even know that there's something you need me for until I'm actually available to allocate some type of mental space to figure that out. We talked about this in a previous video, but avoiding multitasking is huge when it relates to creating this harmony. You have to be focused. So just like we have focus mode on the phone, you have to have focus mode for real, for real. So even though them calls ain't coming through, you still need to not be on Instagram scrolling or clicking around on YouTube, watching the latest whatever, or, you know, doing whatever it is that you do, whatever your distraction of choice is. You have to also be very, very focused, because the reality of us wearing multiple hats is that we have a limited amount of time. And so you need to make sure that the time that you're spending on tasks are focused and you're able to multiply your efforts, whatever it is that you're doing. And a way that you can do that is, again, setting those work hours where you're separating your work time from your family time, so that you're spending quality time with those in your household and not answering work emails at the same time, where you're sitting down and looking your family in their eyes and talking to them about their day and actually listening and engaging, versus trying to do 50 million things at one time. So really just be a focus throughout your day on your tasks at hand, and then just separating that work and home life will be very helpful for you. And a big thing that I'm also working through in therapy, right, is making time for yourself. So something that I realized where I was getting it wrong, because I was doing all of the things that I'm talking to you guys about, where I was getting it wrong was I would go straight from working in the business to home life. So especially when I'm working from home, it's easier to do this. If I'm at the office, I have like a good 30 minutes to decompress because I have a commute back to the house. But when I'm working from home, I'm just upstairs on the computer. So once 4:30 hits and work hours are over, it is time to go into family mode. I just go straight downstairs, start getting dinner ready and all of that. And so what I found was that it was no decompress time. It was no time for me to get my thoughts together before going into another responsibility, which is my household. And so something I started doing was not going downstairs until about 5. So I still stopped working at 4:30, but my husband knows, you know, he needs to stop working at 4:30, you know, close the laptop for work. And she's going to come down at 5 versus expecting me right at 4:30. And so that kind of gave me time to like get my brain together, decompress from my day. I might watch a quick little show that I watch on Hulu or something like that. I might watch a YouTube video, whatever it is I feel like doing at that time. That's mindless. And it just gives me a moment to recharge before going into family mode, right? So that's been very helpful. Something else that we started implementing after going to therapy is actually taking lunch breaks. Because I used to, if I ate at all, because I'm so focused to a fault, right, I could go all day without eating. And I really don't even think that I'm hungry. Like my brain won't even get the cue from my body that it's time to eat because I'm so focused on whatever it is that I'm doing. And that's just not good. And that was not helping even me trying to eat well, because I'd be so hungry by the time I come up for air that I eat anything. Having a lunch break to where set time every day, I actually break for lunch, not just scarfing down food while working if I eat at all, but really taking a step away from the work and enjoying a lunch break and then going back to work. Small things like that have been very helpful for me. Also, something else that I'm working through in therapy that I want to share with you guys is very important as we, especially as ambitious women, because I feel like we have to catch ourselves, because if we don't, we can go down the deep end. It's so important to not let your ambition, your business, your whatever it is that you're called to do become so much of your identity that you don't even know who you are, what you like, or how you feel anymore. And I found myself in that place to where everybody's asking me about business in my personal life. Everybody's asking me about business professionally. I'm working in my business on a day-to-day. My husband and I work together. So in addition to, you know, husband and wife time, we talk about business a lot too. So it can be so easy for business to be such a big part of my identity. And something I'm actively working towards right now is separating that and just being Tatum. Because it's so easy for us to lose ourselves in these roles. And just because this is a purpose thing, it's a God thing, it's impact, and it's so exciting, and it's this calling, and you're you know, helping so many people, it still can rob you of just the contentment, the joy, and the satisfaction of just being who you are. Not doing, being who you are. And we are valuable beyond what we can produce. I had to tell a friend that, and this is something I tell myself often, like, I am valuable beyond what I can produce. And I need to spend a lot more time just valuing myself without producing anything. And so it's so important that and they call it self-care as the buzzword, but it's so important that we focus on that, because self-care goes beyond the vanity. It's really making sure that you're tapping into just being you. And that's something that I'm actively working on right now. And it's kind of exciting. So one of the things I said I was going to start doing was, I really like museums. I like to learn. You guys know, I like to read books and all of these things. And so I was like, man, I'm gonna make it a goal to go to every Smithsonian in DC. It's plenty. And so that's going to be my thing. I'm gonna set aside a day out the week, usually like Fridays, and it's easier to do like during a weekday when I have childcare already. I can just, not work that day because it's my business, right? So not work and go to a Smithsonian. I wanted to get back into photography. So my husband and I were looking at cameras because I like to take pictures, not for a professional. And my rule for myself is, don't do anything for business that you're trying to make a hobby. And I'm going to have to really hold myself accountable to that, because I already know. I know myself well enough to know I might slip. But yeah, just something like that. I'm like, oh, I can go to museums and check out all of the Smithsonians in DC. I love the African American Museum of History and Culture in DC. I've been a couple of times, but there are always new exhibits. DC has a really good Museum of the Bible that I've been to a few times that I want to go back to. So just really taking the time to tap into those things that I like to do, and things that just make me happy and make me geek out and are not tied to me producing anything. That's important. And so I know that this is a lot. You're like, Tatum, you're not adding something else for me to take into account. It is a lot. And that's why I wrote my book, and why the last chapter is called The Blueprint, because I want us to have a system to where we can take all of these things into account and that we can actually apply in our real life. So again, if you haven't pre-ordered the book, it's available now. You can go to tatumtemia.com/book in order to order it. I'm actually doing a free class with those who pre-ordered the book, all about the blueprint. So I'm teaching you the system that I talk about in the book live. But yeah, that's it for this video. Make sure that you like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so that you don't miss when I post another video, and I'll see you in the next one.